Hey there, I'm Aaron, and this is Aaron's Simple Life. Today I'm going to be showing you how I measure, mark, cut, and fold my combination books. I hope you enjoy it. If you do, remember to like and subscribe. I usually measure and mark a book before I cut it and fold it. The reason I do that is because, for me, what happens is if I measure and mark and cut and fold all at the same time, the front of the book gets way more compressed than the end of the book. And it doesn't matter uh, how long I squish it together or put under other books under it, uh, it always looks wonky. So I try to make my cut and fold portion of the book go as quickly as possible so that it's all fairly uniform. This is a book that I colored. You can see the previous video that I did to see how I added coloring. I'll try and put a link in the description, although I'm fairly new to YouTube and I'm not sure that I could do that. And this book, the person who wants it wants the original jacket on it. And so I've just got an old jacket from another book that I put on it so that the book doesn't get damaged while I'm measuring, marking, cutting, and folding. The tools that I use are a piece of elastic. This is the just an old piece of elastic that I had in a drawer from a previous project. And I just hold it together with a pin. Because I change the length of it frequently. I use a mechanical pencil. You don't have to use this brand. Any pencil will work. The mechanical pencil seems to have the smallest lead, so I can be more accurate. And I also use an ink or ruler. You don't have to have an ink or a ruler. You can actually use any ruler that you want. I just happen to have an ink or ruler. You have to use a ruler that has millimeters in it because most of the patterns, or all of the patterns that I've seen, are in millimeters. So your ruler should have millimeters on it. Those are all the tools that I use. I do have a paper pattern today. Usually I use my phone with a pattern on it, but since I'm using my phone to tape this, I had to print out a paper pattern. The book that I'm folding is a combination book, and the design's going to look like that. Can you see it? It says WNIRCNA 2020. It's for a convention. They ordered several of them to put in an auction. If you happen to be going to that convention, my book will be there for auction. I've already been working on this book, so let's open it up to where I am right now. Page 155. I'll just put my elastic on here. Lots of people use various things to hold their pages back. I had some elastic and it's worked just fine for me, so I didn't see any sense in buying anything else. It holds my pages back for me. My ruler, you can see I've put some tape on it. And I have the tape as close to 0 as I could get it on both sides. What I wanted was for it to be at 0 on the back. And what I did was I put 2 or 3 layers of, it's just duct tape on here, so that when I'm measuring, when I turn it over, it just butts right up against the edge of the page. so that it's always at 0. And I tried using the T-bar that goes along with this, but the pages aren't always straight up and down, and sometimes there's only 1 or 2 pages. And with this method, this isn't very thick. You can see, maybe you can see how thick it is. It's not very thick. And so I can get those last few pages without having to do anything funny. So what I do, now I've used these little holes before. What I found is that if I put my ruler up against the edge and I mark in that little hole, it is, wait, I'll tell you, it is 1 millimeter away from the edge of the page. And so what that means is when I go to cut the page, if my mark is 1 millimeter away, then I'm more, or it's harder for me to be precise. If my scissors or my cutting edge is going in at an angle at all, I could be as much as 1 millimeter or 1.5 millimeters off, and I don't want that to happen. I want it to be as precise as possible. So what I do is I move my ruler almost right to the edge, and then I make little marks right on the edge of the page. So let's mark page 155. I've got a lot of numbers for here. 2.5, 3.2, 3.8, 4.6, 5.9, 6.8, 12, 15.4, 16.9, and 19. So there I've marked my page. I don't know if you can see it or not, but right along the top edge are little teeny marks. I'm unable to tell if my camera is focusing, so you'll have to take my word for it. And that's all I do for measuring and marking. It's that simple. I just move through the pattern and mark it, and then I go back through and cut and fold. So what I'll do now is a time lapse and show you what it looks like real time. So there you go. That's all there is to it. I'll see you again when I start cutting and folding. All right, let's see how I cut and fold these books. I've already started with this one. You can see I've got a W and an N and the beginning of an I right here. And there's a 2 and there's a 0, or almost a whole 0. Here's the tools that I use. I'm still using this elastic strap. It does the same thing. I have this little tool. I saw somebody have one, and I thought, oh, wouldn't that be cool for picking up those little teeny tiny cuts, pulling them out so that I can bend them. It's a Cricut tool. Here's a bone folder. I wrote on one side of it. It's kind of faded, but the written side goes up. There's more of a bend down here, and it's easier to fold things on this side. So that's the side that I put my finger on. Here's a cutting mat. Oh, that filled up the whole screen. It's big enough to fit the pages. It's almost too big. That way I can fold and cut. And here's my X-Acto knife. You can see I drew on the blade with a Sharpie. I like to make my cuts 0.5 centimeters or 5 millimeters deep. Some people like to go a centimeter. Some people like to go different numbers. But I like to go 5 millimeters. And so this mark is about 7 millimeters from the tip. And here's my special tool that I made. It's just out of a little piece of cardboard. It's just a rectangle. You can see. And here's 2 legs of it. These 2 legs go up against the edge of the page. And it's 5 millimeters. So that when I'm ready to fold a page, it'll be exactly 5 millimeters. So let's get to the page that I need to fold. I'm kind of doing a little dance because I'm camping and I've got some kind of flies that are biting my legs, and so I have to chase them off a little bit. So if you see me dancing, that's why. So here I put my mat. I make sure that, right, this is page 161, 162. I make sure that I've only grabbed one page because that's important. It could go all awry if I grab more than one page. And I've got my little marks up against the edge of the page. You may not be able to see them from there, but I promise they're all there. And I take my X-Acto knife and I put that little mark, I put that right up to the edge of the page. And then, now how I do it is I hold it like a pencil. I found that when I hold it like a knife, that I have a tendency to push really hard, and that it dulls my blade really quickly, and it takes bites out of my mat too. So what I do is I hold it like a pencil, and I just give it just enough pressure to where I can hear it go through the paper really gently, and then it doesn't bite into my board and my blade stays sharp. So I just put it right up there, and then I push down a little bit and draw back, and it bites right through the paper. And then, let's see, this one gets folded, so this one goes out, so this one is in, and this one is in. So I bent them up a little bit so that when I put my tool on the paper, I bring it right up against the edge, and then these guys are up and ready for me to flip them over. I just push them over with my fingers over this cardboard. And then everything that needs to be folded is folded. And then I take my bone folder. That's another thing that's nice about having this cutting board here. Every page I get to press down on something hard when I'm folding, and it makes my creases a little more even. So this tool is also 90 degrees on all of these corners, and so I can put it up against my top mark to make a 45-degree angle fold, and my bottom mark. And I just eyeball it because there's text on a page and there's the line of the page. So I just come as close as I can. They probably aren't perfect, and that's all right. And then I take my fingernails and I go over the edge. And put it up through. And move on to the next page. That's pretty much it. So I'll show you me doing this at fast motion for a minute. And then I'll tell you a couple of important things that I found out. So there you have it. That's what cutting and folding for me looks like. One of the things that I haven't seen talked about is there's certain points in the pattern that are awkward. For instance, right in between this W and this N. Oh, I guess there's not one there. All right. Right in between this N and this I, there were two pages. These two pages right here, where I didn't have any marks up at the top of the page, but I had one at the bottom. It was right in the middle of this 0. And so if I had followed the standard combination cut and fold rules, I would have made a fold, and that fold would have come all the way down here to the 0. And see along the top where this 0 is nicely, it's right along the edge, and this paper's nice and flat. Well, there would have been two little triangles coming out here on top of this 0 instead of being flat all the way across. And so what I do is the very next page that had a number on the top, I just took that top number and added it onto these pages, and I made a cut there, and then I folded. I folded this page, and then I took this corner and I just made it flush instead of making a pattern. And that way, it sticks right along here, right in between these two letters without causing any problems. And there's no unsightly triangle up there on those two zeros. So that's one thing that I do that I haven't seen anybody talk about. It's possible somebody has talked about it. My research has been minimal and haphazard. So that's how I measure, mark, cut, and fold a book. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Aaron's Simple Life. Because I am camping, I've taken a couple of pictures, so I'll include them at the end so you can enjoy. Thanks for watching, and remember to like and subscribe.